Looking for stories that are fresh and new? Dark fantasy, humor, space exploration, time travel, cyberpunk, alternate history, and more. They're in the L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future anthology. From 24 award-winning authors and illustrators, plus art and writing tips and bonus stories. L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future. Buy your copy at galaxypress.com, Amazon, or wherever books are sold.
It's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcasts. There's an amazing show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards. Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast. In 3 categories: education, storyteller drama, and art. For 4 years, the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast has provided advice and tips from international best-selling authors, world-class artists, contest judges and winners, and industry professionals based on the world-famous Writers of the Future contest created in 1983 by L. Ron Hubbard to help the aspiring writer and artist no matter their age. It is dedicated to the future of storytelling and art by showing that it is never too late to start, and those who make it are those who never give up. Go to podcastawards.com to nominate the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast in any or all of the 3 categories: education, storyteller drama, and art. That's podcastawards.com, and please take a moment and go out and vote now.
Welcome to Negotiating Happiness, the show that helps you find happiness, success, and balance in your work and life. I'm Adriana, your host for this journey into entrepreneurship and personal growth. We're broadcasting live on 107.7 and 105.3 FM in New Orleans as part of the United Public Radio Network. We explore the latest strategies, insights, and stories from successful entrepreneurs and experts. From managing stress to building a thriving business, we've got you covered. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to Negotiating Happiness. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And check us out. A whole bunch of programs on our station are on Roku TV as well. So if you'd like to watch us on your big screen, just type in United Public Radio, and we should pop right up. Hello, everyone. Grab your coffee, grab your lunch, and tune in. We've got an exciting episode today. I have here with me Helen. Hello.
Hello, Adriana. Happy to be here.
I'm so excited. We get to learn so much about you and what you do for your business, for your community, for your family. So let's dive in. I have a little bit of an intro here, and then you can take the floor. So who is Helen? Helen is the founder and executive director of Azul Education Services. And we've sort of figured out that we're going to delve into careers today, personality dimensions, emotional intelligence, and so much more. So I want you guys to have a little bit of background on Helen here. She has over 25 years experience in education, training, career development, academic advising, and program development. She's helped thousands of students and job seekers as they face career transitions from secondary school to post-secondary. For my American friends, that's from high school to university or college, and as also as they progress in their career after school. She's worked at Canada's top schools, including the University of Toronto, Humber Institute for Technology and Advanced Learning, University of Guelph-Humber as well. On a contract basis, she's facilitated training sessions for provincial and federal departments, developed programs for social service agencies, and delivered custom workshops and seminars for corporate clients. Helen completed her Honours Bachelor of Arts in Ethics, Society in Law at the University of Toronto, and a Master's of Arts in Education from Central Michigan University. She is certified in personality dimensions and emotional intelligence facilitator. It will be great to touch on all of that: business, parenting, life hacks, health. So take it away, Helen. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Adriana. It's funny, anytime I hear that intro, it's like, okay, what are all those things? And I guess my big answer is all of my career or my dedication has really been in helping not just students, but actually individuals sort of reaching their higher potential. And I think I realized that very early on. I just didn't know what it was called. So when I was in university myself, or even before that, the whole what am I going to do? I knew I wanted to help people. I knew I wanted to be in a role where I was either educating or, some type of assistance. And I started volunteering quite a bit. And it's through there that I ended up, after graduating, first position was actually working at the university where I'd studied, done a whole bunch of different things since then. I've worked in social services, I've worked in corporate settings, I've done programming, everything from a large number of individuals who had been laid off from a automotive company to working with seniors and really rediscovering the joy in their own personalities. And now with Azul Education, I'm sort of bringing that all together. And I think for me, it's really about I would say I'm a champion cheerleader for all, and also just to figure out what are the areas that are strengths. And that has led me to a whole bunch of different areas.
Right. And I bet you also encounter such different people, different personalities. Do you enjoy working with the general public that way?
I really do. I've been very fortunate that throughout my career, I've been able to work with so many different, such a diverse population. I had, people typically think that I worked only with students, yet as contracts with the University of Toronto or with Humber College, that's where I was a trainer for probably about 2 years. And actually, to date, it's my favorite job. I was working with a government program assisting newcomers, assisting foreign trade professionals and tradespeople in sort of, incorporating them into fulfilling lives, finding employment. And it's never just finding employment. There's all sorts of things with it, but it has been a very diverse, and that's where I learned the most. I think I've been very fortunate to work with especially working in the Toronto area. There is, without a doubt, there's every age group, there's every sort of societal class in terms of whether they are looking for a survival job or looking for something where that it's more academic, more professional. And I think where I have gotten a lot of good feedback is always that a strength of mine is I am able to put myself in their shoes, because I too have a sort of different pattern background in how I've gotten to where I am.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely want to hear about that. And I just wanted to make a comment. So my family and I are first generation immigrants. So I immigrated here when I was 12, and I wish that we had access to some of those programs because I think it would have made things a lot easier. Especially having somebody like you whose experience you were just, sharing and, trying to integrate people into the culture. And I don't know if people necessarily realize that right away when they come to Canada, that not only do you have to get a job, you have to integrate yourself in order to succeed easier, faster, have a more pleasant experience in that way, because there's a lot of change that happens. So you're like the perfect person to do this, because I want everybody to know that you're super active in your community as well. Right?
Absolutely, Adriana. So I'm immigrated myself. So my parents immigrated first when I was 4 years old. However, we moved back and forth from my, home country to Canada due to employment situations with my father. But I only moved permanently here when I was 17. And I think that's what probably, just as you said, enlightened me the most about that process. It's not just sort of changing a dress. It's changing where you shop for food. It's changing where your kids go to school. It's changing so many different things. And
Mhm.
you're right. Our own experiences definitely, particularly in my case, molded of the support I wanted to provide others was exactly what you said, because I remember being in high school having no clue what I wanted to
Yeah.
do. And I
Yeah.
so wanted someone to sit down with me and just ask some good questions and help me out. And here I am now, still doing that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so nice to see that the path that we choose to take in life is derived from real life experiences, right? Because that's when you know it's a really good business model. Is there at some point in your life you would have seen that this particular niche is needed and wanted, and people pay for it, and people succeed because of it. It's a good, positive idea for a business, right?
Yeah. And for me, obviously, you're right. It was an idea, but also then educating myself and finding out everything around it in terms of, what are best practices, what is all of the counseling aspects, all of the career development. So I am a lifelong learner. I do.
Same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it just ends with sort of classrooms. I'm a big consumer of podcasts like this,
Yeah.
or just generally any session or any opportunity to learn a different perspective. And I think that, coupled with sort of formal education is where we all grow and adapt.
Of course, yeah. So tell us a little bit about what made you want to start your business. I mean, I understand and I think we've gone a little bit over on why this particular, but what was the catalyst? What was it that was like, this is it for me?
There's this significant thing that happened in 2020. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It was like COVID-19 or something.
I can't
Something
even tell you
about
how
a
many people
global
have that
pandemic.
exact same reason.
Well, I know most people would say, why the heck would you, go from a sort of established career working for an established, in this case, organization to self-employment? But a lot happened that year, and definitely everything went online. And at the time, working with just seeing all that was changing around me in terms of my own children,
Yeah.
students, parents, a lot of things were happening, and it gave me a a lot of time, I should say, to reflect and think, where do I really want to make my impact? And the area that I was finding was really, really being held back, and I say that loosely, was the age group between 16 and 24. All of a
Mhm.
sudden, they weren't going to school anymore. Everything goes behind a computer. It was quite isolating for many high school students. But more importantly, it was all this sort of doom. Like there was so much fear mongering, and everything was about, oh no, like this generation is not going to have this, and everything from proms were taken away. And I know it sounds insignificant, it's a party, but those are milestones, and without a doubt it affected everybody. But
Mhm.
what I was hearing from parents is, I don't know what to do with my son or daughter. This is happening. Lots of just despair, really. And I was quote unquote always like hopeful Helen, and I thought
You're the
that's
cheerleader.
very.
You've explained it so well. Yeah, you're the cheerleader. You want people to succeed.
And so it started off as an idea of, let me do something online as well, bring small groups of students together. And even when I was still working at the university, it was to bring them together so there was still some sort of community, some sort of connection. Um, and from there, speaking with other colleagues who were teachers, who were guidance counselors, is everyone was overworked once, 2021 for sure. But it's that what was being left behind were youth that weren't being encouraged. They were seeing, unfortunately, their parents or an uncle or a neighbor being laid off, and the future was very, very blurry.
Yeah.
Once I started meeting with those students, it was seeing that, okay, what a transformation. Sometimes it was short, sometimes even just of 2 sessions, or sometimes it was a longer, more custom relationship. But again, to be able to see a student who had lost all confidence, no clue what they wanted to do, or what they wanted to do just seemed such a distance that it was, really dismal, to empowering them. And what surprised me was also the parents.
Yeah.
So I had my business has sort of gone in many different ways, but probably the 2 more distinct areas is supporting the student at whatever stage they're at, but also the parents. There's parents too weren't sure, like, should my son or daughter take a year off? This is happening. I don't know what to do because there's a lot of uncertainty in my life. So I started offering free sessions for parents, and to my surprise, lots of people were showing up, and it was asking, for some it was very just common questions, but for others is, particularly for, we touched on the immigrant population already, is I don't know how the Canadian system works. I don't know how the US system works. And they really wanted to speak with someone. I don't know the numbers in US actually, but in Canada, the general number is for one guidance counselor, who is the person at the school that helps students with their career decision making, job search, class selection, is one person for 300 students.
Wow.
So the number, or 365, anyways, it's a very high number, which results in they're about 5 minutes, 5 minutes a year, if that.
And everybody needs to understand when we talk about stats, like that's an average, because at my school, so I went to I would say it was a privileged school. I'm not even thinking that it was, like, I think we had good resources. We lived in a nice, city in Southern Ontario. And we had, I think, about 800 students, if I remember correctly. And there was only one guidance counselor. And I remember meeting with that one guidance counselor, and no disrespect to anybody in that position, because I do think that resources are not allocated properly when it comes to that part of life in school. But there was no talk about, okay, but what about after? There was no plan. It was just my goal is to get you into the university that you want. Done. And right. And we know that that's not how life works. But when you're a student, you don't know any better. And same with the parents. My parents were those parents that had no idea how the Canadian school system works.
Right.
And they basically just relied on me to make these decisions and, to say, we trust you, you're a smart kid, so do your research and we'll go with it. So then when it came around to my brother, who just graduated from Waterloo for engineering, we're so proud of him.
Congratulations.
Thank you. He was also one of those students that started out during the pandemic, and his university life was nothing like my university life. And he spent a lot of time in his room on the computer, not socializing, not like, there was a lot of struggles in that. Like, he's a very smart, academically inclined kid, and he flourishes when he socializes, and not having that, you could see him just kind of withdraw inside. So there's a lot of and I'm not pointing him out as the example. He is just the one example out of millions and millions of students that were in that situation, where everybody told them, you're going to have the best time of your life. Right. And that just wasn't the case at the time. But he pulled through because he had the resources available, and the school did their job and advertised those resources, and things did get better eventually. So we're so proud of him. He graduated. He has such incredible marks, and he also made lifelong friends and was able to work and go to school and travel. Like, it's amazing it's amazing what somebody can do with this kind of support that you're talking about.
Absolutely. And
Right?
that's the difference. Just as you said, I imagine having you as a big sister might have helped too.
I made the mistake, so he didn't have to.
But the support is actually number one. When whomever it may be, and it doesn't apply just to students, it's to anyone making a career change, anyone thinking about a business. It's, if you feel that you're doing it alone, it is 100 times harder than when you feel you have a buddy, you have someone you can ask questions to that you trust, that can give you feedback because they've gotten to know you a little bit better. I had done my master's as part of a US program, and education consultants in the US are common. It's something, they have a very different application system for colleges and universities, but it was a lot more common here. In fact, in sort of joining different associations or organizations, I've tapped into both. And the one thing that was important to me is take away what were the best practices. And it is truly to sort of meet the student where they're at and find out, just like you said, one of my first questions is, okay, who's around you? Who helps you make decisions? Is it your parents? Is it your cousin? Is it, and sometimes for them, it's like, I don't know. And they realize they don't ask any questions, and that can be the first realization, is their answer is always, I don't know. And to encourage them to feel confident, you have to have some knowledge, right? When you feel like you know nothing, it's a dangerous space, because then if you feel you don't know anything, you also can't plan, you're not capable. I fell in love, obviously, directly with what I was doing. And the other thing is, because I was no longer working for one institution, I could speak to someone about so many. I had part of my career, I had done recruitment across Canada. I had done advising with students from all over the world. And where I thought, when I did my business plan for Azul Education at first, where I thought I would just be only working with sort of Ontario students, the province. And what has happened is then, of course, there's been referrals. And again, it wasn't planned, but it's been wonderful. Started working with students who were outside of Canada, but were interested in either studying here or moving their family here. And, to me, the best thing I can do is answer the questions, but more importantly, teach them what kind of questions they should ask. That is the hardest part. When you don't know what you're looking for, how can you be asking for something you don't know about?
Right, because you haven't been exposed to it. That's exactly it. And that's why it's so easy for somebody in that age range also to feel isolated, because they don't know. They don't know what questions to be. Maybe they know that they should be asking questions, but they have no idea who to go to. So it's so great to hear that you right off the bat, you basically give them a heads up of, hey, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to ask for help. You need to have somebody you can trust. Who do you trust, right? Like, that's so, it seems basic, but it's very, very helpful. And I actually, funny that we're kind of on the same wavelength here. I have some stats here because I want to tie it into, like, your process is, again, like you said, not just working with students, but working with people that are changing careers and people that are maybe, coming out of their careers and doing other things. You mentioned working with seniors as well. I just wanted to pop in here and say that this might not be accurate as to 2023, but in the last couple of years, the university enrollment in Canada, there's about 2.5 to 2.7 million students annually. Okay, that's a lot of students that don't know what they're doing, right? Because I remember being there, right? And I was the person that liked to plan and read ahead. And again, until you have somebody with the experience to tell you, you have to go from A, B, C, D. You kind of go through A through M through Z instead of kind of fully understanding the process. College enrollment in Canada, it was around 1.4 to 1.5 million students annually. And that's from Stats Canada. Now in the States, which again, we know is a very different landscape because of population and different states, different resources. The university enrollment for the States was estimated to be over 20 million students annually. That's undergraduate and graduate students. In college, which is a lot more common, and their system is a little bit different. So college enrollment would also be like community colleges or junior college. Everything else, even though they call it a college, would be university as well. They're estimated to be around 6 to 7 million students annually. And that's a 2-year program. So like we would be here in college as well. Right. And I've gotten those stats from the Department of Education or the National Center for Education Statistics. And what I wanted to say is that with all of those students going in, they have to come out and then they have to enter the workforce. Some of them enter early as temporary, not necessarily their careers. So I said, I wonder what the last couple of years, what the landscape looked like for both countries, the unemployment rates. So the unemployment rate in Canada right now, well, as of May, it's sitting at about 5.4. And for those of you that don't know, our average was about 7. So this is good. This is very good, right? This is very good. And the only reason why it actually went up from a year previous is because the 16 to 24-year-olds are working less, right? Because they also go into there. So what does that mean? That means it changes the landscape of summer jobs and the idea of summer jobs, right? And that was so interesting to me because I work with clients that are having issues with recruiting, right? But they're generally in the 24 and up age range. And that's why it's such an employees market right now, right? And people need to take advantage of that, but they need to take advantage of it in an educated way. So this is where you would come in, Helen, to say, I know what the stats are. I understand. Here's how the landscape is changing. We're no longer operating with resumes that have X, Y, and Z, right? This is so important to know what resources you have available so that you can make really intelligent decisions to set yourself up for success for later, not just for right now. It's not just a paycheck, right? And I actually looked at the unemployment rate in the States, and it's 3.6%. which is also decreased from previous years. And I think it was about 5 on average. So this is great news. So anybody that's talking about, I'm not an economics person, but every time I hear the word recession, I tense up, right? And I was reading some articles with some economists saying, I don't know why people keep saying recession. There's no recession in sight. So what does this mean? This means that we're still in the transition point. And this is where you can make some really smart decisions, either with school or with your career in order to get ahead for what's coming. Right? So this is where somebody like you, Helen, can say, where are you at? Where do you want to be? And here's how to do it. Right?
Absolutely. The workplace has changed. The landscape has changed. I think people's goals have changed.
Yes.
And that's not just for young people. That's for, a more mature or senior or even at executive level where people are making decisions on slightly different factors than they did, let's say, in 2019. Lots has changed. There's also a lot more options. I think one of the things that I have found, I'm all about resources, and maybe that is the mini researcher in me. Is, to me, information is power. So when I'm working with someone, just like you're giving these stats right now, I see it as the goal at the end of when we're working together is that you should know a lot more options than when you started.
Yep.
But even more importantly than the options is, what are the decisions to prioritize those options, to look at? Is it something, we're talking about entrepreneurship here. Like, again, everyone had said, like, why start a business in the middle, or in this case, it was actually December 2020. And then I would say, well, I can only go up from here. Like, it's, but what I saw is a real need for something because of what you're saying. So it is an employee's market. It is hard but if you talk to youth, they say they can't find work. And why is that? So it's finding out what are the trends, and what are they looking for, different things, and what are companies doing to attract, retain?
I have a few thoughts on that. And it's funny because you're pointing out where they're not connecting. The employer and employee are not connecting in this market whatsoever. So I think what's happening is, with all of these successful businesses that have been around for X amount of years, they're still operating on the old system, right? So they're not understanding that, like you said, the mindset has shifted. We're no longer just giving out our time just for a paycheck, right? There has to be some sort of, and that's a good thing. And I know that employers don't think that that's a good thing. It is a good thing. It means that the person that wants to work for you long-term, and wants to also be fulfilled. So then the relationship automatically gets 10 times better. You don't want somebody that's there just for that paycheck, right? So I think it's because employers are also learning that they need to operate in a different way. Like, there's a lot of internet memes on how Gen Z operate, how millennials operate, and how, the new generation, looks like they're about to operate. And it's so funny that everybody looks at millennials, which is high right here, and they're just like, why are you so traumatized? Well, I don't know. Let's see. We've always worked for somebody who is older than us, who had a very different landscape to work with. We've always worked for generally less pay than somebody who is in now, because we didn't know how to speak up for ourselves, because you just put your head down and work, right? So that mentality is out now. And I think that's why a lot of people are starting their own business, especially millennials, because they want to change the face of the corporate, situation that happens right now. And I'm not saying that it was all bad. It wasn't. And I had some terrible experiences, and I think that was kind of a blessing in disguise that pushed me to do what I've always wanted to do, right? But it's because I think the employees are learning faster rate than the employers.
I mean, anecdotally, although I'm sure there's lots of research on this too, I am seeing a very large percentage of younger adults saying, I don't want to do the same thing my mom, my dad, someone did. And then when you talk about it, they were lawyers, doctors, professional engineers, all of this. And of course, you think, oh, okay, what's happened there? And they say, yes, I know they made a very good living, but I never saw them when I was a kid.
Yep.
I don't want to be that person. Or I have a little bit more of a creative side. Oh, and my dad just says, no, take this, because this is where you're going to make good money, forgetting that you're going to have to also dedicate your life for the next 8-9 years studying hard. Getting into those competitive programs, the competitiveness has increased. Yep. And then we also have the opposite, where students are like, I'm just not up for it. Like, why am I going to do that? Don't get me wrong. There will always be people applying to medical school, law school. All of those things will continue because they are truly professions that we need. Yeah. Yeah. But I'm seeing a lot younger students, with capacity to, but saying, is there a way that I could incorporate my really strong skills in math, science, but also a creative side? And in the past, we would always say, well, that's going to be a hobby. on the side, you could do whatever you
Yeah.
want.
I
And
was
that,
one of those students that heard this. I can confirm that. Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
And now I would say, and certainly I do that, is it's much more than that. You do need to, whatever that you will be dedicating the most amount of hours to in the workplace or in your career or in your business, if you're not getting a little bit of that, you'll burn out, number one. And two, you start to almost really dislike what you're doing because you don't have free time to
Yeah.
do what was so-called a hobby you could keep.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very critical thing that we be listening to this. And for me, when I hear, so many young students are still of course, they want to be liked, and they'll say what they think the other person wants to hear. Well, I'm going to study this, or I'm going to do this. And yet, but lately I've been talking to individuals who sort of, are planning engineering, and we say, have you looked at the trades? Have you looked at, really that whole skills set, the technical skill set that perhaps not, it doesn't have to be in a university setting, but
Yeah.
it does have to be in a setting where you're going to be using, all of your interest in,
Yeah.
mechanically or anything like
Anything
that.
that's not on the traditional path, right?
Right.
Right.
And that's the thing. I would love, and this is, I think even when I worked for university and colleges, I've always said, this is not the only option. Not everyone has to be here. And so often what we're most afraid of is, did I make a mistake? Did I go into the wrong area? And of course, there's shame in that, and you feel bad, and you feel like you've lost so much time, money, investment. And it's like, okay, if that's how you feel, but now let's pivot very quickly. Let's see, because everything you've developed is yours. Your education will always be there. Your experience will always be there. But moving forward, let's plan for something that's going to incorporate. And I think that's what's happened to me as well. And maybe that's where I am such a proponent of incorporating in a very holistic way where individuals are at. I didn't realize it, but I was a serial entrepreneur without realizing it, because my hobbies, my side hustles were something that I really wanted to do. So now when I'm able to incorporate them all, it's much more fulfilling. It's much more impactful.
Yeah.
And I think for me, what I'm seeing is such stronger results, because it isn't of, okay, let me look at the career that'll pay me the most. Okay, that'll get that. But rather than career planning, it's almost like it's a lifestyle planning, and asking, even as young as, grade 10, do you see yourself as that? Because school doesn't teach too much about entrepreneurship,
No.
but some skills have that. Some students, I should say, have that in them from a very young age. They may have not started their own business at age 12, but they were doing other things. And there's always a thread in there. And I'm a connector, so the more I can find out about someone, the more I can then, restate back to them. Like, you mentioned something over here that you were doing this, and that, usually they dismiss and say, oh yeah, that was just something I did, for a few weeks.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting. I feel like this conversation can go on for hours because I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. I'm just going to do a quick station intro ID for anybody that's just tuning in. You are listening to Negotiating Happiness, and we are live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Check us out. We are also on Roku TV. And for anybody interested, some of our shows on the network are nominated for the Podcast Awards. So please go check out the Podcast Awards website and vote for us. What we're doing right now, I'm here with Helen from Azul Education Services, and we're going through trends in careers in students, both in Canada and the US. And we're just talking about kind of what does the system lack? What does the system do really well? And what are our next generation's feelings about entering either, the workforce or a school in here? I'm really excited to hear about personality dimensions quickly, if you can explain to people kind of what that is and what your take is on emotional intelligence. And after that, we're going to get into the good personal stuff. I want to talk about health. Let's talk about what makes you happy. And if you guys have any questions or comments, please drop them here below. And even if you're listening to the replay, if you are on the post and want to leave a question, I do see the notifications and we will try and answer you. So Helen, what are personality dimensions?
Emotional intelligence.
Oh, okay.
So I was an avid, again, because I've always been sort of working in this space. Assessments were always important to me, self-assessments, personality assessments.
Yeah.
And emotional intelligence hit, I think, the cover of Time in 1996. I don't know why I remember, but I always remember. And I thought, what is this? So we had always heard of IQ, but we had never heard of something called EQ. And yes, I used to receive a weekly subscription to Time. Those
amazing.
things exist.
Get a membership now on the website.
And I actively don't even read it now, but it was something that at the time I felt this is where I could get opinions, and internet was not something like you couldn't. I think Google was called Ask Jeeves back then.
I remember Ask Jeeves.
Very just nothing as resourceful as what we have now.
Yeah.
So print actually provided me with, educated information, and that was relatively up to date to the last week.
Yes.
And so here I was learning about what Daniel Goleman was the first one sort of to coin the term, but it wasn't necessarily new. It was, we had always thought IQ is really the academic knowledge, looking at your capacity to store information, to relay, and emotional intelligence was starting to really reflect on the opposite, which was our own regulation and how we regulate with others. And that to me hit me like, this is going to be the key. I became certified. I started getting certifications in personality dimensions, but others as well, because I thought if there's a tool that can give us a gauge on where we're at, it can be developed. And I started from that premise. So not to rate people, not to do like IQ where, if you have a 99 or if you have 180, whatever it may be, but emotional intelligence from the point of view of getting a better understanding of what makes us tick, but also how we relate to others. And those are the key parts. At the time it was called street smarts. And we always need someone who was street smart, but give them an exam. And you were going to say something.
No, I agree. Okay. Yes.
So I was fascinated by that. And I started doing a lot of sessions on contract. I was on contract with the public service, with Ontario government, and going in and with small groups, large teams, all sorts, where it was getting a gauge of where they were at in their introversion, extroversion. And most of us had thought that, well, someone who's extroverted is someone who's really social, and someone who's introverted is very shy. But it's much more than that.
Yeah. It's
really where we get our energy from. And then, so for instance, you can have a social introvert.
Yes, I was just about to say, I think it depends on the situation. We can be both. Yeah.
Absolutely. But if you get an awareness of where you get your energy from, that's different. So throughout my career, I've had to do large presentations, and, public speaking in the beginning was, why do I have to do this? And now I have no issue whether it's 100 or 500 or just 20. I prefer small groups, but I learned that I can do it because I would reach more people. The difference is if I was at a conference with a few colleagues who were also doing something similar, let's say at the end of it, my colleague would say, great, now let's go out for drinks. And I would go, no, I'm going back to my hotel room and I'm going to nap. Because I had given discussions all of my energy.
Yeah.
And so that was the introvert in me is, okay, let me go recharge my batteries.
Yes, it's important.
And an extrovert gets energy from others. So they will prefer, and again, it's not about sociability. It's really then where you put your energy into as well. The other part that was really important for me is, and that's where I said I'd also worked with seniors because it was so funny. This was a retirement home, and explaining to them the different aspects of emotional intelligence where they go, oh, so you weren't just thinking of how to, drive me crazy all along. That's just because the way you are. And I've incorporated it always in assessments as well as personality assessments, because the more understanding we have of how we operate, what's important, what motivates us, what is going to get us up to go to school, to go to work, and so on, the better decisions we can make.
Yeah.
So I think what happened though in the late 90s and 2000s is human resources started to use these things. And I wasn't in favor of that, because that's actually before you even, again, because it was easy, you buy a tool, you get your potential employees assessed and you get a response. But the reality is this, to me, wasn't something that you should be tested on. It should be really used as a development tool to see, is there an area that you may want to,
improve?
Yeah. Are you more of a sensing person? Are you more basing on intuition? Do you make your decisions based on rational thoughts? Do you make your decisions on feeling? All of these things, in terms of personality, they say it's hardwired. Like, you don't change dramatically unless there has been a dramatic both a dramatic and traumatic incident.
Yes.
But the emotional intelligence is, to me, why it was so important is it's not about the result. It's about finding out, is there an area that actually a job like ABC is not going to be best suited for you, because it's going to rely on an area that is not your strength.
It sounds to me like it's about teachability, and everybody's teachable as long as you know what their methods of understanding and connecting are, right?
Yeah. And emotional intelligence, really, it was, again, it isn't just the self-awareness, it's also what's the self-regulation, right? So how do we manage and control our emotions? And I determined very early, this is something that you have to continuously work on. I know I have to, because we
all do. We all do. It's not, you don't just stop learning. And it's really fascinating to me that you go into retirement homes and teach older people that are wiser than us in some ways, these things that are considered somewhat new. To me, 1996 is not, it's not that long ago, even though it's like 30 years or whatever, right? But it's funny that until then, it wasn't really considered, right? It just shows us how our standards change. So what's specifically then the personality dimension part of this?
So the personality dimensions, so this goes back to, so this is not new. So if you think back, some of you might have heard of the Myers-Briggs indicator, which, and it goes back to Jung. So we're talking about thousands of years. But personality dimensions is a Canadian tool. So I had been in the US, it's True Colors, and it was being used across the board in most school boards. In grade 10, you would get some sort of assessment that was telling you, where you were at. And to me, my worry there is people were being pigeonholed, or people were being, labeled based on, again, factors.
It's a very, very fragile age. Anybody in high school it's great that they're so moldable, if that's a word, right? But it's also not great because you can literally steer them in the wrong direction based on something. They're not baked yet. They're not fully baked cookies yet. So I don't, it's yes. And it's way better, I think, if you're doing it even after first year university here. That's when they ask you to pick a minor, major combination. People still don't know what they want to do with their lives. And I feel like that's more an appropriate age when you're in your 20s rather than when you're a fresh 15-year-old that has never even spent a night away, from their parents. I totally agree with that. There are certain things that can derail somebody, just like in sports. If you are, overtraining somebody, they will burn out when they're too young and they will not want to continue sports. It's the same thing for the mind, right?
Yeah,
That's so interesting that you do all of that. I just wanted to show everybody your website really quickly and where they can find your services.
Okay.
Hold on a second here. There we go. There we go. I hope everybody can see this. Okay, so here is azuleducationservices.com. And look at that. Helen has a freebie. Yeah, you have a freebie. It's the ultimate guide to choosing a university. So if anybody's interested or have children that are almost university age, go ahead. So this is your website. You clearly state you do academic planning, career counseling, and job search or changing in careers, right? Oh, and you also have scholarship information. That's a really big one for parents as well, right?
Huge.
Yeah.
Financing education is a big thing for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And it's obviously you need to dedicate time on its own to deal with that kind of thing, right? So you have here, I can see you have, sorry?
Why I added that is I think too often I would hear, and this is when I was working in university and college settings, where I'd ask someone, did you, finance is always an issue. Did you apply to any scholarships? And the sort of time-tested answer is no, I didn't have the grades, or I didn't know how to. And I'm like, there are thousands of millions of dollars that go unclaimed because they don't get enough application.
Yes, people don't know that. And it's not all about grades. It's not.
No, so many of the ones I list, there are always the academic ones. Those you will automatically get through the schools. But this is about ones that may be based on your background, your volunteering, your sports, your music, an affiliation with your culture, with your language, all sorts of different things.
Yeah. Or clubs you've volunteered for or taken part of in school. So things that also make you happy. They have those as well. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. I think the funniest one, and this is a colleague that pointed out to me, and it's open to both US and Canadian. And this is just to show that it's not all about marks. There's a hot tub scholarship, and it's actually a hot tub cover company, and you write in an essay, I think it's 500 words, about, how can hot tubs improve your life? And obviously it sounds pretty quirky, but the award is like $1,000. And it's like anything, if people aren't aware of them, they're not applying to them.
Of course.
Every year, every school says, people don't apply. Oh my goodness, we only have 5 applicants. I worked in a department where there was 1 year, and this was a $5,000 scholarship, and there were 0 applicants. And to me, that we had done a bad job. We had just not promoted it enough. And so, but also people, when they see an ad for something, they think I won't qualify.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's such great advice, is you just have to go for it and seek them out, because sometimes they don't get the space that they need to in order to advertise. I just wanted to go quickly to your social media here. You've won the Platinum Award for Mississauga. That's in Southern Ontario here for 2023. Congratulations. The Platinum Award for Education, Lessons, and Courses for College and Universities. This is for Azul Education. Way to go.
Thank you. And I have to say, it's not just me. So one of the things that I have done a little differently than perhaps other professionals in my space is I'm a huge believer in mentorship. So it's one thing for me to work with a young student and, okay, I'm the talking head, I have the education, the information, but that's not enough. So we have a team of over 30 educational assistants, and they're really volunteers who are either in programs or who have graduated, that when I hear a student and we're exploring different areas that they can pursue, that there's also a student available that could speak to you about their experience in education, in business, in robotics,
Yeah.
in all of those. And it's actually not huge time consumption. Like sometimes it's just speaking to someone who's been in their shoes
Yes.
more than less, not more, less than 30 years ago, which was me, right? And so mentoring can be, people think it's a huge time consuming, but sometimes it's as simple as a Zoom check-in, a conversation, someone that you can ask recent questions like, what's the campus like? Or, how much,
Yeah.
any different aspects
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
it. So I think that has distinguished us in terms of having resources beyond just me and others as staff, but
Yes.
also
Yes.
connecting them with
Real life examples for sure. And for anybody that's just listening, I'm just scrolling through Helen's website here on her team page. She has an astounding number of education assistants that are willing to lend their time and a hand, which is amazing to see. And I see here anything from college to university to law, medicine, business, science, you name it. She's got somebody here or economics, look at that, nursing, biochemistry. So that's so cool. Congratulations to the team as well.
I'm very lucky that for not all, of course, but many of the students, once they have worked with me, and then of course they go on to their next stage, and I check in with them saying, are you available? Most people want to help. The majority of them will say yes, because I can remember how hard it was for me.
Exactly.
And so,
Exactly.
the pool keeps growing, the more clients I
Yes.
have, which then say, yes, count me in. If there's a high school student that doesn't know what studying in film production is like, well, I'm in the film production program.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So let's take the last couple of minutes here to talk about like you've had some health struggles, you're running a business, you're a mom, you're a partner, you are your own individual self. Tell me what helps you get through those tough days and what makes you happy.
Oh, Adriana, those are the questions that I think are usually, I know when I'm listening to others, they're the most meaningful.
Yeah.
I have all of those facets, and I think, it's honoring each one of them is sometimes the most difficult. Because yes, not only am the mother, my kids are slightly older now, but there's still questions, concerns, my own health. And I did realize that, again, I think I mentioned at the beginning, I had all these side hustles, and I still do. So I found that I needed to honor each one, starting with, the first year of business. I didn't schedule a family vacation because I thought, I just started up.
Yeah.
Mistake I did, big mistake, because now I've seen how that affects me, how that affects my health, and letting different parts, asking for help myself. The best way I can be most helpful to others is that I know how to ask for assistance when I need it. And I knew that for me, I needed to be able to not get frustrated if there's something, and that I could be free. And I am. I'm very candid. I've had some recent health issues, and I tell my clients, this is where I'm at. I will give you 100% of my time when I am well. However, if something comes up, I need you to know. And at first I thought, oh, this is a big mistake. I'm revealing to a client that there's something potentially wrong with me. But it has never backfired, because what I find is, not just with parents and the students, is life is happening.
Yes.
And I think too many years we've just
Totally.
been like, whether we're sick, it could be something as slight as a cold or something else. You don't tell other people. You just continue working and working and working, and you don't reveal any of the vulnerabilities. And the reality is we all have different aspects going on. So getting support, asking for support, being, for me, it's important to be candid. And I ask clients the same thing, like, tell me what else is happening in your world that might affect our progress. Like, and I'll get a little bit of everything. Like, I'll get like, well, you know what? I just found out I have an allergy. And I think, well, that's going to affect you. Yes, because if you have to get on allergy medication or anything like that, it does affect things. So I think for me, it's to respect my own time and to do the same thing for others. I was very lucky when I started the business that I was part of a startup business group that offered tremendous mentorship in everything from, the ideation, the business plan, the legal aspect, all of that. And having, how I say I'm the cheerleader? Well, I needed cheerleaders
Yeah,
myself.
of course we do. Of course we do. Yes.
The quote unquote advisory board that I can
Mhm.
go to, and they can say to me, you've gone too far. And I learned to say to those people who I trusted the most, if you see me going too far, pull me back. And that's something that, at least for me, I know I've heard it before, but I always ignored it. And when you're an entrepreneur, you can't ignore it because life keeps happening around you.
Yeah.
And so partnering with other businesses has been the best thing I've done.
Okay.
I don't need to know everything, or else I would be doing all the social media, all the bookkeeping, everything. There's
I
so
say
much.
this all the time. I say this all the time, that you need to invest your resources in order to cut out the things that you're not supposed to be doing, the tasks that aren't, bottom line, that aren't producing you revenue, because you are the idea person. You are the person with the most experience. It doesn't make sense for you to do the admin stuff this is why I talk about automation a lot.
Yes.
You
taught
automate
me
your
that.
back. Yes, I did. Automate the back end, and every so often you need to refresh it. It's okay, but you don't need to answer every single email and every single inquiry without the help of your program, right? Or you don't need to manually add everybody in, because that should be done automated, and that over
I didn't
time
know
saves.
that.
Of course, and a lot of people don't, right?
I operated in a,
You're
I
in a
guess the
bubble.
system, and the
Yeah.
system was already built for me, right? So I was just, and then when you start your own business, actually you have to build that. And if I didn't build it, and if I didn't have, for instance, your knowledge and experience, that is such a waste of time. I was wasting so much time on things that weren't productive for me. And actually they were frustrating because I didn't know how to do them. I was stuck.
Right. And it's not that they weren't important. They just weren't the things that were bringing you in the revenue. So they weren't making the machine work, right?
Yes.
You were working for the machine instead of the other way around. And there's always things that are coming up that are new. I'm still improving on mine, and I'm still finding things here and there, like, oh, we could do this, we could do that. But that's why I'm the idea person, right? But it is very hard to find those people to work with. What I did like about what you said is that you're partnering up with other businesses. I love that. And I love the not gatekeeping. I talk to a lot of people in my industry as well. And I love that we can share ideas and understand that my clients aren't necessarily your ideal clients, and vice versa. And there's enough to go around. Like I just said, there's 6 million students just in Canada that are ready for you. You know what I mean? It's awesome to know that you're very similar mindset of let's collaborate and do it. What do you do for fun? You talked about
What do I
vacations.
do for fun? Oh, well, something that the COVID brought about that I had forgotten how much I used to love it because I was just go, 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 was all of a sudden gardening, like seeing the results. We have our own tomatoes, we have our own lettuce, we have our all of these things that I think that for me, like we were just away and I come home and I go check on my crops in real life. Like it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I think for me, family is everything. You know, I have for fun, you know, I love to travel. Travel has been impacted a lot due to COVID, due to starting a business, but it'll come right back.
Of course.
There has to be the fun, just like you said. If there isn't an aspect of release, I needed, for me, I discovered that in gardening, I liked it because I was working on something and I saw the results, and you know, I was very proud of them. Actually,
of course,
it is for fun. It's as introverted as I may be, the most fun is when I'm with others.
Yes.
And then it is a time of that, you know, I think I had myself put some family things in the background while I was in the thick of my career. And as I've gotten, it's not even about age, because I've seen lots of young people with this very mature mindset. And if anything, I'm seeing more of it. More and more young people are going, I don't want to wait till retirement to do that. I want to do it now.
Mm-hmm.
Most people sort of say, well, they're not serious. It's like, no, actually they are. They're just thinking things differently. I was brought up that another company was always your competition. And now I'm seeing they aren't. We can collaborate. We can learn from each other.
That's right.
You said it the best. There is enough business out there for all of us.
Yes, 100%. And I think that is that also the whole collaboration goes hand in hand with that view of, no, I want to take time with my family. No, I want to do this before I retire. Because what is the point of having your own business if you can't operate on a positive level, right? And I'm very open about this. Like I'm close to burnout. You know, it's happened a couple times where I was right on the brink, and that's a signal to me with my ADHD brain to go, okay, it's time to go back to the drawing board and plan. But in the back of my head, I have that where I started this business to spend time with my family, to travel. I want to be able to pick my son up at 3 from daycare if I want to, not 6, you know, when it's the absolute last minute. So you're right. It's about shifting your mindset. What makes you happy? You want to go garden today at 2 in the afternoon? You can go do that. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah.
Yes. It's so good to
you said
have that.
This right now when you said I'm honest about this. And that's the thing. We always used to think that, no, that's something we hide. Well, I can't tell people that I like to go for a swim at 2 p.m. because then you're not working. Well, actually, that's the way that I get energy then to work on my 4 o'clock appointment, right?
Yes.
And for me, the more honest we are about our own needs, the more productive we can be with others, because this shield that all of us have put out about to be professional, you have to do this, look this way. And, you know, oh, it was that busy. Everybody had to always be busy. And if you didn't say you were busy, then there was something wrong. I don't think I mean, I say busy sometimes if I don't want to talk about it, but it's not necessarily, busy may be with things that you choose. Yes. Not necessarily what others choose.
And I'm finding that, and I learned this from a mastermind, from a coach strategist as well, is that if you set out, let's say 4 hours in a day to work efficiently, where you're actually concentrating, who's there to tell you that you can't do anything else outside of those 4 hours? You're probably producing more quality work in those 4 hours than you were in 7 or 8. It's that whole mindset switch. You don't need somebody over your shoulder to tell you that you need to work 9 to 5. You don't need somebody to be like, you don't look busy enough. Because when you're your own boss, you understand that it is to your detriment if you are
Yes.
lying to yourself about what you're doing. So I'm still learning, and I'm still trying
Me
to
too.
get this out of my head, be like, stop working at night, stop, just focus on those hours and make it work. But that takes a lot of work. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. And yes, I don't hold back when I'm struggling, when I'm whatever, not necessarily because I don't necessarily post this on social media, but I talk to the people in my network because they understand. They're also entrepreneurs, and they also, struggle with various things. And it's just to get ideas. And so far that has worked really well for me, where I've gotten ideas like, oh, I never thought about it that way. This is probably one of the most important things that I'm working right now on, is figuring out my ideal schedule. And I talked in one of my previous episodes about this. What can you do today instantly to improve your life as an entrepreneur? And that is it. Create an ideal schedule or calendar and try to stick to it.
Yes.
And when you fall off the wagon, because we all do, just reset and go back to it, right? So thank you so much for sharing all of this, Helen. We're definitely
great.
past our time here, but I enjoyed it so much.
I think this is, we're being honest with each other, and that makes the conversation easy. And if anything, I would say about sort of negotiating happiness is really do that. Like, I love the title of this podcast for you, because I think it is a daily thing. It is something that we need to be honest, negotiate, and then be kind to ourselves. Yes. Number one, don't get, I have to say this to myself, I shouldn't get mad at myself if I couldn't do this. Instead, just, okay, do it.
Reset, find another way. Maybe this isn't the way you operate, for sure. And the reason why negotiating is always in motion is because this was a hard lesson to learn, is that you don't just reach balance and doesn't stay there. It's literally an everyday thing. You don't just, okay, I've had a perfect day, from now on I'm gonna have a perfect day. That does not happen. This does not happen. Well, thank you so much. I just wanted to do a quick shout out here. If you guys want to follow Helen, by the way, Helen, do you have any upcoming projects that we're looking for?
I'm going to be, so I haven't put it out there yet, but what we'll be rolling out is different packages I have come September, which is sort of the new academic calendar. And I will be, all of that will start to come out in social probably in August or early August. And that, for me, one of the things that I'm really happy to share, that I do have a new partnership with a new company also called SOAR, and we're going into classrooms, and we're doing a lot more work with, so there's the consultant side of me, the career counselor side of me, but the other huge part is the educator, and really getting in early to plant that seed with students that it's okay to not know.
Yes.
Work on it.
So to find out all of this when it is all updated, you can go to azuleducationservices.com, and I just plopped the link in the comments. So if you're on one of our posts, you can just go ahead and link through there just to make it a little bit easier. Yeah, and if they want to follow you on social media to stay up to date, it is Azul Education is the handle. You'll have it right here on the screen as well. And thank you so much for sharing all of this, Helen. We hope to see you again. So if you do have those projects coming out, reach out to us, and then we can dive into those as well. I want to just do my quick little outro. So thank you for everybody that's tuned into the show. This will be part of the archives or the replays. If you just want to listen while you're driving, our following on the UPRN account on SoundCloud is amazing. I just want to give out SoundCloud a quick shout out. We get hundreds of thousands of listens per episode on my show specifically, never mind all of the shows. So thank you for that kind of exposure. We appreciate it. And Thank you for everybody that listened or that will be listening, and to the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network. Next week, we have another guest as well, so it won't just be me talking. And stay tuned. We just have a couple of videos about the podcast awards and how you can vote. And I believe it's for News on the Flip Side show and the Outer Realm podcast with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano, which is probably one of my favorites. Joe's is too, News on the Flip Side, but I have a favorite. So thank you so much, Helen.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, everybody. It's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcasts. There's an amazing show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards. The Outer Realm in the category of Best Female Hosted Podcast. The Outer Realm is a very popular show hosted by Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano, which boasts millions of listeners each week who are well known for and have been complimented on their very laid-back, roundtable style of interviewing. Together, this dynamic duo brings you the best of the best with guests from around the world who are well-versed within their respective fields of ufology, paranormal, esoteric, and other areas of high strangeness, and more. So go to podcastawards.com to nominate The Outer Realm in the category Best Female Hosted Podcast. That's podcastawards.com, and please take a moment and do it now. Hey there. Hey there. It's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcasts. There's an amazing show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards. The News on the Flip Side, in the category of Politics and News. News on the Flip Side is a much different news and political program which is not deemed as opinion news. Listen as Joe Montaldo brings to you just the facts from trusted sources which will allow you, the people, to make up your own minds on the various stories being reported on. Go to podcastawards.com to nominate News on the Flip Side in the category of Politics and News. That's podcastawards.com, and please take a moment and do it now.
Looking for something new in sci-fi or fantasy? Check out what Brandon Sanderson, Orson Scott Card, Nnedi Okorafor, and others chose as the best news stories of the year in the L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future anthology from 24 award-winning authors and illustrators, plus art and writing tips and bonus stories. L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future. Buy your copy at galaxypress.com, Amazon, or wherever books are sold.